Good afternoon, everybody. LJ here, the Go Biz Guy, the podcast for entrepreneurs. That's easy for you to say. I don't know. I've had lots of coffee and now I'm on tea. So word verbiage is not very clear right now. So it's for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Today we have a guest that's been on here before. She's just become a full-time entrepreneur. And she went to So I just about knocked my tea off, man. Okay. So
I heard that.
I just I'm going out of my mind. I'm losing my hair, to a corporate, HR role and everything. And she's working with a lot of, diverse people. I'd like to introduce to you, my friend and, my co-host today, Amanda Schreier. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because, let me ask you something. What's the difference between cannabis and marijuana?
Cannabis is the nice word for marijuana, but no, the cannabis industry is to me, it actually kind of goes into the CBD usage as well. So it kind of goes over edibles. There's beverages. I mean, it goes over not just the traditional smoke that everybody recognizes. So it's not just smoking joints, which are called pre-rolls if you're going into a dispensary out here. So I had to learn that verbiage. But
okay.
The cannabis industry covers all usage of it. So any hemp-derived products, it covers that as well.
So it wouldn't be very good to say the marijuana industry. So when did the word cannabis kind of like evolve and everything? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't know, actually. That's an interesting way to put it. When we talk about the cannabis industry, being in the cannabis industry, we only use that term.
Okay.
We don't really, I've yet to hear someone say marijuana at work. And I've been there since April, which is entertaining. So I'm like, I know it is marijuana.
Right. And so there's a stereotypical perception. And I think it has a lot to do with, and we'll just kind of dive into that a little bit, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail. But I think there's a perception of what marijuana is versus cannabis. And that's the reason why I asked the question, because I think our society has this like Cheech and Chong vibe,
Yep.
that they think that, man, you do drugs, man, you do smoking marijuana. And you picture them driving down the road singing those songs, right?
Right.
But the cannabis, all of a sudden, it takes on a sophisticated persona, and I don't think everybody knows, to be honest with you, the depths of the industry, and what it's all about. And just to kind of segue a little bit, and I know we didn't want to talk about this too much, but there's 21 states that have legalized adult use for cannabis / marijuana. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is, and you just give me your opinion. You don't have to be a poli-sci perception or person to do this.
Yeah.
But there has not been one, and I thought Kamala Hamalo would do this, but nobody has endorsed the industry and their political swagger. And I wonder why that is, because it's such a huge industry, isn't it?
It really is. And it's it's heavily regulated already. And I mean, this is just state by state. So I'm curious to see what the next 5 years really goes towards, because it's starting to become pretty mainstream, and it's not just the recreational use of it. It's the medical use that's widely accepted. So I was even in, I got to tell you about this situation that happened a few weeks ago.
All right.
I was literally talking to insurance brokers, and I was, vetting our health insurance, talking about benefits for the upcoming years. Uh-huh. And she was literally wearing one of our products in the meeting. And she was actually wearing one of the medical products. And she said, this thing is a game changer. Like Mary's has changed my life. I can't believe I'm wearing one of your products right now. And it depends on which side you're talking about. So we have the Dixie brand that's a lot more fun, and that's the recreational side. That's the more mainstream, gummies, different kinds of beverages. We call them elixirs. So there's different ways to partake on the recreational side, but the medical side, no one really talks about how helpful it really is, and it's widely accepted, especially out here. So it's been an interesting transition for sure.
Yeah, but again, there's been no politician that has decided to run on that side of the coin. And what do you think the fear might be of a Trumpster or a Kamala endorsement of? I mean, he got on and said, he endorsed the crypto.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts there? I'm just curious.
I mean, this is just my opinion, but
yes, it is.
When you say, when you say marijuana versus cannabis, you're talking about all the products that could possibly come of working with the cannabis sativa plant. So you're talking about the hallucinogenic products. You're talking about even putting hemp in lotions at that point. But when you say marijuana usage, it's specifically related to that THC and kind of digging in on that side. And that's the side that's so controversial. But you can't talk about one without talking about the other. So I think that's why politicians are kind of staying away from that topic, is because you either are kind of all in or all out. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of separate those terms a little bit. The recreational side is not the medical side. There's sometimes not an overlap. But it's been an interesting kind of thing to see, because I would love a politician to back it, because I think it's a critical game changer, especially financially.
Well, it is. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I've heard pros and cons about the tax base increasing and in states and everything, and then the outcome is, okay, so what are they giving to in their budget vis-a-vis the cannabis tax or marijuana tax and everything else like that. So maybe that's the political perspective that they're shying away from. I have no idea, but I think it's such a huge industry. Just off the top of your head, and what do you think the industry is worth right now? What is a trillion business, a $1 billion business?
Oh, you're catching me on a.
Yeah, shame on me. Yeah, right. This is.
You caught me right off the guard here.
Yeah. Shame on me. I ought to be horsewhipped. If you don't want to go, we'll go to the next point. If you don't want to do that,
No. So
okay.
just in Colorado, so it's around 15 billion in total sales of marijuana.
Okay,
and that's including the medical side. Okay,
so let's do the math. You got a calculator next to you? So let's do 21 states times 15 billion.
Oof.
That becomes $1 trillion. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I mean, that's a huge industry in the United States, and let alone it doesn't even take on the persona of that's my keyword today, persona, and it doesn't even take on international markets, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, and I for my Russian listeners, they'll be hearing about this pot and everything. They'll probably want to get their hands on it, but I just it's very interesting because and that's why I'm really. I mean, I'll just say this. I think the last debate was terrible. We don't want to get into the politics of that too much, but I just think that they should be more vocal about this industry, and then governors ought to be more proactive, to say, now listen, here's the divide. Okay. Just like I asked the question earlier about cannabis versus marijuana. I think if more governors would endorse it, I think they'd probably win or lose. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that people have moral perspectives and everything. But to be honest with you, when my wife had cancer, I mean, we tried smoking it so she wouldn't have to suffer. And so, I think that, even if you're a Christian and if you're a conservative, I think, this is going to come into play. And my son-in-law is a pharmacist. Okay. Very conservative dude. And he endorses the medicinal part of marijuana and cannabis. Okay, and I think there's more pharmacists that will do that.
Yeah, and it's I don't know why there aren't more politicians digging into it, because it really, I don't know. There's an opportunity there to make it a little bit more black and white. as far as it really isn't a moral issue because I mean,
It's not.
depending on where you dig in, you're not supposed to have caffeine and, there's the coffee industry,
Right.
or you're not supposed to
Drink wine. Right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I would love to see somebody try to take the wine out of my hands on a weekend, but
Right? Shame on us. I always eat a lot of Italian food on the weekends.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The big, like, meaty Italian dish with a nice red. I mean,
Thank you.
that's where that.
Yeah.
So, but there's people that condemn that as well. So I think kind of taking it away and kind of looking at it from the tax basis and also looking about how many jobs it creates too. I mean, it's a thriving industry out here, but too, I mean, there's this misconception that, the companies are pocketing the money, but we really do give back quite a bit in tax revenue. And I mean, just the economic value of having it legalized in a state. I mean, we're kind of old news at this point in Colorado.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, a lot of the states are old news, I mean, and I think one of the current states is West Virginia that just got, for municipal purposes and everything. And I know some people that smoke it to go to sleep and they've been scripted it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think that, a lot of, and this might be some pressure. We'll get to some of the talking points. Okay. But, I think what happens is I think some of the pressures from pharmaceutical companies will probably not endorse it because it may replace, things to sleep on from, like a trazodone or something like that. But if somebody takes a gummy, and it beats melatonin and you wake up refreshed, well, guess what's going to happen?
Yep. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I haven't really found a dispensary. Well, we don't have, I don't know, in West Virginia, I don't know. I've seen some marijuana shops or cannabis shops. I don't know. They call it the hemp shop. I don't know. They got some creative names in some of these places.
Yeah.
But I haven't been in, where I've seen gummies and everything, so, but I think there's going to be a big switch over. And you mentioned 5 years from now. I just, excuse me. I think, from a Fed and a state basis, I think that we can almost balance the budget, federally. Should we legalize it across the country, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it is some crazy stuff and everything. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I'm a little bit, upset with the politicians that there's so much information they haven't. So do you guys have lobbyists that do work at the state level?
I believe so. I don't have direct contact with those,
okay.
But anytime there's a regulation change that happens at the state level, we're involved in 4 different states right now, and we have liaisons, and we do advising in other states as well. But even Missouri right now is going through an administrative hold on a product that it's interesting because there's no real details around the thing. So it's like, okay, we're looking into this, and that's kind of the extent of the knowledge that you get at the public level. And it only affects the dispensaries and the manufacturers at that point.
Do you know? Okay.
Yeah, it's just so it just goes state by state. But lobbyists, I mean, that was the first person I wanted to get on the phone was like, hey, do we have somebody, that can talk on our behalf, try to figure out what's going on. And I just don't have access to them, but
okay.
I really hope that they're out there fighting for everybody in the industry.
What states are you currently in right now? And the name of your company is?
Bell Rock Brands.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And we manage Dixie Brands and Mary's Medicinals side.
Mary's Medicinals.
Yep, Mary's Medicinals, the great brand.
M-A-R-I, Mary?
No, yeah. Like Mary's, like.
Okay,
like
all right, so it's the Y's. Okay, all right.
Yep.
Well, being from California, I mean, we smoked our share, and sometimes I was thinking this morning, I thought, okay, what's the history? Did the Romans smoke weed? Did, I'm sure I don't think we came from apes, but,
would that be a sight though?
Apes smoking marijuana? Yeah,
well,
you bet it would be.
I'll get it over to graphics. We got a new logo.
Yeah. Ape weed.
Yep.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Well, maybe we just take a page out of Geico's book and we just go, so easy a caveman can do it. There we go. We're just looking at it all
okay, yeah. So now you owe me some money for some consultation. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I do not endorse that product.
Yeah, right. That didn't have anything to do with it. So, how many employees?
We're in Colorado, California, Missouri, and Michigan. Very different markets. So.
Wow, California's got a huge marijuana industry. Are you a competitor there? No doubt, right?
Yes, and it's a major undertaking there. So the size of the state alone, really makes it challenging. So.
Okay, and I'll ask another question. We'll move on. But so, and I don't know how to put this. I really don't. I don't want to call California and then their governor and stuff like that. I don't know.
It's a challenging time to be in California for sure.
Okay. So I don't want to call it a woke. I don't want to call it a woke state. Okay. But I think, and I don't want you to go into that. That's why I didn't want to say the word woke. Shame on me.
It's a state in need of balance. That's a nice way to put it.
Oh, okay. So woke and balance. Okay. All right. So there we go. The more weed they smoke, the better off everybody's going to be, right?
Exactly.
So I just wonder. You said Michigan, that's kind of a conservative state, right?
Yeah.
Colorado is kind of liberal, and and so on and so forth. So the politics of a state doesn't really matter because there's 21 states that have legalized it, and so any strategies to moving further, or you just want to get settled in California and some other markets before you move on?
So I think it's more of just making sure we have a sustainable industry first. The industry itself goes up and down like crazy, and I think everybody is kind of hunkering down or closing up shop. And
really,
we have the opportunity to really thrive because we have that corporate mindset with the mom and pop heart.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the sweet spot is for a lot of small business owners right now. And, we have 130 plus employees, over 4 states that I'm currently managing under the shared services umbrella.
Dang.
But that's, I still consider us very small because we have such immediate access to each other. So there's not this corporate red tape as far as, everybody has my cell phone number in the company. They can pick up the phone with me. Yeah. So I'm glad all 100 of them don't call me.
Yeah. So you're 24/7 basically, right?
Yeah. And then dealing with the different time zones, I'm kind of always on.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So what, with 130 employees and dive in. See, too much freaking caffeine, man. My lips are sticking together. But what is the profile of a good employee for you?
Oh, I love good employees. So they're good employees it depends on the company, what your check marks are, but the willingness to grow and the willingness to show up. That's kind of everything. Doesn't matter what their background is, if they're willing to come in and do the work and they're reliable and transparent. Things happen in life, especially when you're working with other family people, people that are supporting their families or they're trying to start their family, or some that don't have family support at all. There's that element of, they come to work for the stability really. But there's so many different ways to kind of answer that question. I'm giving you the politician answer there, but a great employee to me is someone who shows up and does the work and is looking for more growth. It's kind of a growth mindset.
Okay, so not to interrupt you because I'm really rude, but so that's for your company, but you gave me a general thing. But is that your banner that you kind of fly inside of you when you're trying to hire someone, that you ask a gazillion questions and you say, okay, come to work tomorrow, and they don't show up? then what happens?
Well, sometimes they don't show up to the interview at all, and that
Oh,
always
really?
blows my mind. Oh yeah, they start early when they're not going to show up.
Okay, let's define that age group.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is?
So it actually happens for different reasons at every generation level. It happens more frequently with the Gen Z and the millennial crowd that are a little on the younger end. And the reason I say that is because they have so many opportunities that they run towards at the same time that if they get a call and an offer that they really want to go towards, they don't really stop to think of like, hey, I need to call everybody I'm interviewing with right now and to let them know I'm not taking that opportunity. It's more of like run towards the thing they want and not necessarily go for the cleanup, if that makes sense. So,
what the frick? Why didn't? Okay, so let's put those in age demographics:
Yeah.
Gen X and Gen Z and P and Q and R S T. Tell me a little bit about the demographics on a specific number of age. Like, are you talking about 18 to 25-year-olds?
Yeah, so
I thought.
Gen Z is born in the 2000s basically.
Mm-hmm, right.
And the millennials kind of go from 81 to 2000 ish. That
Right.
Generation X is like a very, very interesting one in the workforce right now. So that goes from 1965 to 1980 ish.
Mm-hmm.
I say ish because I act more like a Gen Z or Gen Xer at work than I do a millennial.
Cool. All right. Okay.
And I'm right there on that cusp. So,
Uh-huh.
and then you've got your boomer generation from the 1946 to 64. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But okay. So let's go back to some core values that are taught in families, just for a
Mm-hmm.
second. So I'm really shocked that they don't call you if and they don't even show up for an interview.
Yep.
And they run to a job, but they've never been given any responsibility. In my opinion, I don't know. You probably know my demographics. I don't want to tell you. I'll be 98 in July. Okay. And, so I'm way off the cusp of any kind of, G or whatever. But I wonder why that is. Because I think that goes back to a work ethic, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And it also goes to communication differences too. So it's not just the shared values that generation has. There are some communication issues too. So, millennials are used to that digital age. They grew
Right.
up in that age. They've had it at a younger age where they didn't have the technology, but they've got to experience both sides of it, which is really cool. Gen X lived without it for the most part. Unless you were involved in technology, in the kind of infancy stage there, you really didn't have a lot of technology. That's where you get your relationship building, especially, think about them being in sales. A Gen Xer in sales, is an incredible fit because they've always had to be face to face with customers and having conversations. If you don't say it, it's not real.
Right.
You have to talk it out. So, millennials are right there on the edge where they've lived both lives. Gen Z has only used technology, grew up in the age, has always had a device in front of their face. It's, they almost didn't get to grow up on their own though. And, with the Gen Z crowd, I specifically see insecurities there that aren't in the other generations because they're constantly scrutinized online. And it's kind of a disservice really to that generation because they never got a chance to kind of make mistakes away from people. Millennials, we got our stupid years out of the way before
Yeah, right.
we had a phone interface.
Yeah,
So
right.
it was nice, It was old news by the time we got a cell phone, I even remember running back to my dorm room to get the phone call about where the party was going to be that night. And
Right.
if you weren't in your room, you didn't get the call. You didn't know where anybody was going to be. And we were still landlocked at that point,
Yeah. You stay in the room all day, so
Yeah.
you don't go anywhere because
you sit there with the curlers in your hair and you just sit by the phone,
Yeah, I used to do that all the time. Sit there with the curlers in my hair.
With
Yeah,
the curlers.
yeah. So, and I was even bald at that time. So, but I think it's really crazy what's going on in the workforce. I see, I see where Aldi is going to be stepping up their pay per hour, to $23.25. And I think if you've ever gone into an Aldi's, I'm sure you have. I don't know. There's something about the professionalism of the staff. I yet to go into one where, I mean, and they're timed by the activity that they do in terms of checking people out. That's why they just scan things, boom, 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 boom. And so their cue is I'll get a raise based on my production, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so are you guys very similar to that in terms of paying people well, or do you like give them a little bit of you're only worth $25 or $15, but the other person's worth $25?
Yeah, and this is where I kind of have to take my traditional HR hat off, and I want everybody to do better than what their assignment is, and I want everybody to be driven to do more, to ask for more, but be willing to put the work in. So even right now, we're looking into college credit programs, things like that. So if you wanted to go back to school for a little bit and make you better at your craft or move into those new roles, where you can earn more money and have more responsibility, you're doing it on a platform that makes sense. It's not just because you were here and you had a pulse and you stayed here longer than everybody else. That's kind of been the traditional promotion that happens in most companies is, hey, you've been here for a while. I guess it's time to move you up. And they may have the same skill sets that they've always had. And then you kind of make this person a manager over other people when they didn't learn the skills to do that. So I get on my high horse a little bit about this just because I don't care who you are or how old you are. I care that you're doing the work. And if you don't know how to do the work, that you're asking somebody. And that's I feel like we pay very fairly compared to others in the industry. I believe we're on the higher end sometimes. It just depends on the type of role. So we have a lot of high producers right now, and it's great because they can kind of get into their zone, and they produce a lot of products, and in one big swoop, and they really figured out the efficiency of it. And then we have some that are, a little bit more new to the workforce in general. So, entry level packagers, things like that, where they're just trying to figure out how to work in general. This might be one of their first big jobs out of college, They're like, hey, I need a job. I don't know what to do. Some of them are just fresh out of college, and they're like, okay, I'm old enough to work in the industry, but you have to be 21 to work in cannabis, by the way.
Right.
We get them when they're 21 and up. So we're not catching, the 18-year-olds or anything like that, but we're catching kind of new in the workforce. At 21 years old, I didn't know much at 21. I'll say that much. I was mouthy, but I wasn't necessarily a great worker then. Long story short, I mean, we're paying fairly, but I'm also constantly revisiting how we pay people and how we consider the hourly versus salary wages and what the total package looks like, as far as health insurance goes, opportunities for advancement and leadership training, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to evaluate how much you're really making at a company. And it's like, how much are you investing in your employees at that point too? It's more than just the hourly wage.
Well, if you look at some successes, that, and even if you take a look at McDonald's, I mean, my gosh, McDonald's now is up there with, for a meal, I mean, it's like $12-15 now. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can go to a nice Italian restaurant, and have a nice meal for $17. So my point is that McDonald's, if you buy at one time, when you bought a franchise, you had to start at being a clerk or an order taker, mm-hmm. and you had to work your way all the way up through in order before maybe a year or two before they would actually put you in a management position. Well, go figure, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have to understand the business that you're in, and you have to be willing to start at the grassroots. And so is that kind of the philosophy that you guys go towards?
Yeah, and it's that with an asterisk on it. So we're still working our way up the ranks, but we're doing it at a speed that sometimes someone even hasn't hit their 90-day review yet, and they're already moving up to the next level.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
there's not a timer on it. It's the quality of the work and the consistency of the work that we really judge.
Define quality for me in your industry and what you guys do. What does quality mean?
Quality is as few mistakes as possible, of course, and that being able to exceed expectations on the production numbers, and also how many products can you really produce and how viable are those products. So waste is a huge thing for, the cannabis industry, especially when you're making products. It's the same as any manufacturing plant, really, when you consider, what the overall arching principles are there. You want as little waste as possible. You want as much production as you can get, and just not having to constantly criticize and have your work overlooked all the time because you're making so many mistakes. So it takes some fall into it naturally. They just have a natural gift for, producing products over and over again and without the mistakes in there. But the ones that have mistakes out of the gate that aren't caught by managers, they can really dig themselves into a hole because they're practicing muscle memory at that point that helps them make more and more mistakes. So sometimes it's natural performers, but they have to have a good attitude too to be able to move up and be able to work with those multiple generations too.
Yeah. So getting back to hiring, I mean, are you able to kind of like spot that good person and just kind of like, okay, that person is going to be on a career path?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the funny part is that, I'll give away some of my tricks here. I ask questions that have absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Good
and
for you.
I judge the response based on how they respond, not necessarily what the response is. Mm-hmm. So I've asked for recipes for chili. It's like, hey, tell me how to make your favorite chili. And someone that answers like, well, I don't know, like I just do this. And they kind of throw the question away. They're likely to throw away other things too. They're likely to throw away conversations or opportunity for growth. Mm-hmm. Somebody that digs into it, even if they don't know, like, hey, I'm a terrible cook, but this is how my mom makes it. That's even a response. Yeah, that's a valid response. Yeah. But it depends on, okay, first you do this and then you do this. And you're talking about somebody that actually thinks about their process. And that there's a lot of success with that. I mean, it's all in how you answer. So sometimes I ask people what their favorite flavor of ice cream is and why it's better than all the other flavors. Okay. And I get a wide range of responses on that one. And I get the safe responses that always say vanilla. They're like, I just like to be with everything and everybody. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of thrown away.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I know vanilla is my actual favorite, but I would say something as far as, being able to blend with other people or, something like that. But okay. I've had someone actually snap at me during a manager interview. They were actually interviewing for a high up leadership position, like a district manager. Okay. And I asked them that question. They said, well, how am I supposed to answer that? And I said, well, however you'd like to answer that. And they said, well, that sounds like someone else's problem.
Somebody else's problem, right?
That sounds like someone else's problem. I would probably yell at that person. I'm like, well, you're going to make a terrible manager, and I'm not going to get my vote on this one.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's how you answer during the interview process. And also, I've noticed a big difference between positions that involve a lot of talking. If they can't talk to you in a phone interview, I don't usually schedule for another interview because you are constantly going to have to be talking to your employees and, trying to dig things out too. Some people don't want to talk to managers. I mean, there's a gap between, the leadership there, but, oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, it was just like it sounded like a little bit of noise there.
Well, I have some noise too. My dog is muffling around, and so I have air conditioner going and everything. And I live in a little Quonset hut now that I've moved and everything. So, but so when somebody's being interviewed for the cannabis industry, do they have an expectation of what they're going to get paid for, or they could care less?
Yeah, so one of the interesting regulations that happened in Colorado first And it's kind of, I don't want to say first, but we're on the early end of it.
Sure.
We legally have to post what we are willing to for that position. And we have to post the range, and we have to hold steady to that. And we don't have to go outside of that necessarily. If someone's on the higher end or lower end of that, that's totally fine. But we do have to post a range on what we can budget for that position. And we have to make that public knowledge. So I do that for every industry that I work in, because I think it's important for employees to know what to expect. Because there's nothing worse than having somebody that is a perfect candidate that needs 3 times what you're willing to pay for that job. And the number that I come up with when I post positions is not just based on a budget. It's not just a budget number. It's also the value that we can expect out of that employee. And, there's a difference between a manager and a director and a VP. And those are different pay bands. There's different pay ranges there, and different maturity levels as well,
right,
and experience levels. So the more that you put into your position, the more that you have to offer, the higher you're going to get paid for that job.
I don't know what's happened, but I sound like Darth Vader from my ear pods that I have on. I don't know what's going on. I sound like Darth Vader in my head. So, yeah.
That's it. You're cut off.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Stop chewing those gummies, man.
I was going to say, do I need to send a different kind of gummy out?
Yeah. You need to stop doing that, man. Yeah. So
I'll put you on the CBD dog trees. Those tend to calm the dog for dad.
Okay, good. I need to get off all my drugs and start doing gummies. So can you imagine me taking too many and go to martial arts? Oh, my word. Yeah, that should be
just
fun.
Like a ragdoll.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't get hurt. I bet you'd be fine.
Yeah. I'd be laughing and they getting hit all over the place. So, but okay, so it's interesting because with that kind of an attitude of you hiring and everything, which is a great attitude, I think that you've been in the people business long enough that you can call them out and you know exactly where they're going to sit in terms of your corporate structure. Here's the deal. I mean, I know that, I don't know, that I think people expect way too much out of themselves. And I think they have this other concept of working for somebody that they know it all and they're not willing to learn. And I think that plays a big role in probably a lot of dissension that goes on within a company, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where some of that generational divide, the communications among the generations actually happens. It's, I know more than you. And you may have somebody younger than you that actually does know more than you, or that has a more natural knack for what you're doing. And you have to kind of accept where you are because you're all at the same place doing the same thing.
Right.
And you kind of have to step out of yourself a little bit and say, okay, am I being a jerk right now? Am I being a good coworker? And it's tricky sometimes.
So do you how do you handle bad behavior in your corporation?
Oof, very quickly and swiftly and consistently, most importantly, consistently. This is where a lot of companies open themselves up to discrimination, and it's because you're handling your employees differently, and every employee is different, but you do have to have a standard protocol that you apply evenly. And especially when you're talking about a baby boomer versus a Gen Zer, if you apply the same strategy and you have a well-rounded strategy and hey, this is progressive discipline, this is a verbal warning, the next time's a written warning, third time you're out, this is showing that you can't fix the problem. And as long as you are evenly applying discipline and you're doing it quickly too, it's almost like training a puppy.
Okay.
I compare it to training a puppy. You got to catch the puppy while it's peeing on the floor.
Right.
Or you're never going to catch that dog.
Right. Exactly.
It's
right.
going to be a dog that pees in the house constantly.
Okay. So I'm hoping some of your employees hear this. Okay. You kind of compare them to dog peeing dogs or whatever. So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, basically call me the newspaper because I'm going to whack them. But you have to, you can't let too much time go in between the act and the actual discipline. And that's where people kind of mess up. They start having meetings about meetings. They've pushed this out. Now 2 weeks later, you're getting in trouble for something you said 2 weeks ago. and you don't even remember the context that you said it in, or you made a mistake and you didn't. If you don't catch it in the moment, then it really doesn't mean anything. The discipline at that point is just for the sake of discipline, or it seems retaliatory at that point. But if you catch somebody in the act or shortly after the act, you have the best audience, that because you can the entire situation is fresh. You can say, hey, you remember when you just did that thing? Oh yeah, that's the thing I just did. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that because that wasn't right. And so you can kind of correct them in the moment. But yeah, handling discipline swiftly, I mean, is so important, and consistently. Yeah, swiftly and consistently. And that's the same for every industry. It's especially helpful in the cannabis industry when we can't afford the waste. If somebody is messing up a process, I mean, discipline doesn't always come down in the form of like, hey, you're arguing at work, or hey, you hit somebody, I got to talk to you about this. Sometimes it's, hey, you're not producing the standards that we have to have you produce in order to take your spot. So there's a lot of performance-based evaluation that goes on too, and especially in a production environment.
How does one go from production into a management position?
And actually, on the operations side, it actually is a really clean move up to director of operations. So there's a very clear pathway. The more you pick up about how production works versus packaging, when you understand the process start to finish, then you have an opportunity to move up in the ranks pretty quickly. And usually people move up on the production side, then they kind of go to distribution. Some are moving all the way up through the distribution side where they're handling ordering and filling boxes and making sure the labels are correct. They start with that level of detail, and they can zoom all the way out and be able to handle an operation where they're handling both. So usually they start on production side or distribution, one or the other, but they can move all the way up to operations and beyond. So you can become a director. Your VPs usually come from being directors before. So there really is no stopping you as far as being able to work up on that side.
Yeah, so they don't have anybody that is eyeing your position, right?
I don't think anybody would wish that upon themselves.
That's a huge task, I mean,
it really is. Yeah.
And you being an entrepreneur, I mean, you know that HR is important in everything that you do, from being an entrepreneur to managing a huge business like you do and everything. And it was interesting. I consulted this friend of mine, and he started a janitorial business, and I always tell everybody, I said, listen, my hourly rate is $2.50 an hour. Okay. But today it's free, and I'm going to take you out for lunch, and just want to talk to you a little bit, find out a little bit about your business. And so he started, I don't know, he had $10,000 that he plopped into chemicals and everything. And I said, Anna, I said, just an idea. We eaten hamburgers somewhere, and I said, hey, just an idea. How many hours a day does he put into his business? And she looked at him, she looked at me, she looked back at him, and she said, 2 hours a day. And I
That's a good business owner, actually.
Well, I looked at him, and I thought, well, do you have, what kind of skin in the game? Or you have 30 employees doing your thing? But I said, if you continue down that road, you will succeed or you will fail. Okay. You're just going to fail. And, so long story short, he's now doing $8,000 a month. He's hired some employees. I'm afraid that he's going to be not the best guy to work for, because he micromanages. And I think to kind of put that all into HR, I think that small business owners make a mistake when they become the HR person. And I think, I think that but you have to be that HR person. But if you have no talent or no inclination how to deal with people, then it's going to bite you in the butt. And even in a large company, it's going to bite you in the butt. And because as we identified, there's going to be bickering and fighting all the time because people have egos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and HR, so the problem with HR and having business owners handle that part of it, there's an immediate conflict of interest because you are going to have favorite employees, and it's kind of hard to
Right.
shake. It's hard to shake it when you want to give somebody a lot of opportunities, but this other person's not working for it. Having HR come from the outside, it evenly applies what is available to employees. Now, it's still theirs to work for, it's theirs to lose, but having somebody from the outside to kind of go into that pathway is really important because it also removes you from the situation. You're not a friend, you're not an enemy, you're the business owner at that point.
Exactly. Anyway, it's interesting to watch small business owners grow and do their thing. I'm currently helping a friend of mine grow her business, and so it's just a lot of fun, and she's very savvy, and she doesn't have any employees, but anyway, so I think
it's funny. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there.
Go ahead.
I actually never set out to do HR. That's the funny part about
really?
what I do for a living. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So back in 2013, I started my MBA program. I started, just boots on the ground, running in all directions and doing consulting work and just applying what I was learning in school. I was able to immediately apply it outside of school. And so I picked up, small business clients, and almost always, I always wanted to go in there and I wanted to do a marketing plan. I wanted to do, let's restructure this and let's redo this. And always when I got in there was a people problem.
Yep.
Almost immediately right out of the gate, there was people problems.
Yeah.
So, I blink and I'm, going into my almost 12 years here,
Cool.
of an industry.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. Oh my gosh. So I turn around, I have a certification now, and I have, there's no more certifications for me to get. And I said, I don't even know how I lucked into this, but it's just digging in on the people side. Once you fix people and how they feel in your environment, there's so much that falls into place. I mean, I don't want to say it's 95% of the problem, but usually it is.
Well, man, really, every time I do consulting or I spend time with a business owner or something, and to be honest with you, I have an MBA, but it's basically an experience MBA. Anyway, but I think it's interesting because it does go back down to relationships. It goes back down to people skills, and I think God's blessed me with some decent people skills. I never used to be that way, but I think it takes time, and I think it takes time within a corporate world in order to learn the corporate environment and then key in on those things that you want to do for goals and objectives. I mean, I think that any company that wants to bump up somebody and move them forward because that guy or that woman rocks. I mean, open the doors and just let them go, and being in sales for quite some time, it was interesting because and you talked about this, I had a sales manager that in the telecommunications world, man, he wasn't worth crap. I knew more about the telecommunications world than he did, okay? But just because he put numbers up, he was better than all of us, and so he got moved into management. Well, he was a bozo, man. I mean, nobody had respect for him, right?
Right.
And so there's such a synergism in human relations in a company, and there's a buy-in from top down, and then you're sandwiched right in between all of that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, have you ever heard of the Peter Principle?
Yeah. Well, share everybody what the Peter Principle is.
Right. So it's a generally, just kind of speaking in general here, it's the ability to rise above one level, beyond your incompetence level. Mm-hmm. So when you see, I don't know how many times a day I see managers that are labeled as incompetent, and it's because they're at least one rung up from where they probably should be. And for different reasons, sometimes it goes to trust. If they're a very trustworthy person, they may not be a talented person. Mm-hmm. And you've just subjected every employee underneath of them to the fact that you're prioritizing one thing over the other. It's like, well, I prioritize this person being really loyal to me versus me, this leader might not have the best skills to train other people. So That's kind of where now in the cannabis industry specifically, we do a great job of making sure we're not over promoting. And if you do, I mean, you're setting that person up for failure because your
Right?
entire team can turn on you overnight
Yeah,
at that point. So you really
exactly.
do have to know your stuff. And if you're the person that doesn't have the answers, your crew can turn on you so quickly. So, but as HR, I try not to promote them into positions like that. I try to say, hey, maybe we take a step back. Maybe we look at this. Is this something you want to do in the future?
Hmm.
So trying to just say, hey, I know that job looks really nice. You want the pay, you want the responsibility, but you got to take all the stuff that goes with that. And some of that is you have to know what you don't know, you know.
Right. And just about everything that I did some subcontracting work and everything. And a lot of times, man, I didn't even know poop about their products, man. And I'd have somebody for 50 grand, and the further north I got, from Erie, Pennsylvania, maybe up a little bit of New York, I enjoyed working with those people because they say, get the H out of my office. I don't want anything. And so I had an immediate response that it was a no, right?
Right.
And, but then the further south I went, it was like the good old boy system and everything, I had to wine and dine. I had to do this and everything like that. But knowing your spot in relationships is really critical. And, I think that a good training program you probably have in place. I think that, as you mentioned, people come from different sects of life, different faiths, different ideologies, political stances, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes in those work environments, those become catalysts for bickering and fighting and everything else like that, rather than focus in on that frickin' job, right?
Right.
This is probably, maybe I shouldn't say that.
I will say that the best teams that I've ever worked with in my life are the most diverse. And the reason being is there's different levels of diversity. There's experience diversity. There's,
Yep.
Everybody always thinks about the color of everybody's skin. They're like, oh, well, this person is a different color than me. They're diverse. Well, you may have had the same upbringing, actually. So you may have had the same opportunities. So you're more alike than what you realize. But digging in all directions, making sure that there's equal representation on your team. The most diverse teams they come up with the best outcomes because they have so much more problem solving ability.
Yes.
And they dig out every possible solution. So I love diversity, but it's one of those things that a lot of places have not unlocked how to work with it yet, or they think it's more of a checkbox on an application. So it's so much more than that, though. It's how you do your work too.
Well, and I think even from me personally, I mean, the Bible talks about iron sharpeneth iron. Okay.
Yeah.
And even though we disagree, okay, on ideologies or politics or something, I wish that more people would be open to have a communications or a conversation about how we disagree in kind of a good context. I know I've not always been that way in things. I've worked for some people that endorse socialized medicine, and and I think because I disagreed with them, I think contract wise, I think I was let go, even though I generated $1.5 million in sales. So I think that you have to pick your battles, but I think the focus has to be your job and the culture. And wanting to move it forward, just like this lady that I'm helping with. She's a dear friend of mine, and the products that she has, I just want to help her move her company to put it in all the Krogers nationwide. And we're talking to some other chains, but my entrepreneur skills goes up when somebody says, can you help me? Right. And I think that's the attitude that a lot of employees need to have is that, can you help me? How do we make this better, Amanda?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of focus in on all that stuff. So at any rate, well, let me ask you something and we'll kind of wrap this up. I know you've got things to do but can people buy online from other states, from your website?
So we actually have, I'm going to pull it up right now to make sure I've got the web address correct. And there are products that are legal across state lines as far as CBD goes.
Okay.
So right now we have marystails.com, and these are products that I swear by, and just because I use them at home.
Okay.
So these are the hemp-derived products. So these do not have THC in them.
Okay.
So they are regulated a little differently. Mary's Tails is actually our pet line, and this has been really, really pivotal in like taking care of our dog, who is 11 right now, and he's getting a little slower, he's getting a little older, and his little grays have come in on his face, and he's just moving a little slower these days. So he actually takes the treats now.
Wow.
We have treats, and there's a tincture that has a bacon flavor to it that he will just drink. I mean, he'll drink right out of the dropper.
Oh, wow.
So there's all kinds of different ways to help pets. I mean, even if you're not into it yourself, you can help your animals with it too. So I really like that, because it's not something we were considering before. And if you go to the vet, they're more than likely going to prescribe something that is not over the counter.
Right.
You don't know exactly what you're getting. So, I would rather give him a dropper full of something chicken flavored.
Yeah.
I know what's in it. I know that it's been heavily researched. And also, if I have a question, I just literally go right upstairs and I ask the scientists that put it together.
Awesome.
It's nice, because I'm like, okay, this is something I can trust, because I got somebody to yell at upstairs if it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really nice to get him up and moving again, and kind of he's got some mobility back,
Cool.
But he's gotten hooked on it, so I'm afraid it's addictive. But I don't think it's supposed to be addictive. I think he's addicted to feeling better. But
yeah. So is that the only website that you can
with the THC products a little harder, but you can try to find our products in stores as well.
Okay.
So I would have to look up and see what the closest one is to you, but I may send you on a little driving spree one day.
Okay, well, maybe I might need to do that. That works for me.
Yeah, I'll send you the whole map, and you can just cross the whole U.S. and just try our products.
Okay, I'll put my dog in there and with some stuff, and we'll be good. Yeah. Because I have a wilderness Subi, and it's off road and everything. So, Amanda, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to close with?
No. Everybody just be good to each other, especially in an election year. Don't kill each other.
Yeah, right.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it, and so thank you very much. Tell everybody in your family I said hey, and we'll be talking very, very soon. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.